Hello, everyone. Welcome to the day two of the European Research Days 2024 Oceania, a flagship event of EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand, organized in collaboration with the Delegation of European Union to Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific. I'm sure that many of you were able to join us yesterday, and we witnessed an extraordinary start to the event. I'm sure that today will be no different because we have an excellent speaker lineup for today as well. Thank you for joining us from different parts of the globe. The ERD is going to focus on the research community and provide them with information and support for scientific exchange and collaboration with Europe. Now that you're already aware that the event is of 5 days, each day is addressing a specific theme and intended for a certain target audience. Today's theme is Understanding Horizon Europe. So we'll go into details of it. Please join me in welcoming our honorable guests for today. We have with us Ms. Nienke Buisman, who is the head of unit for international cooperation, Asia, Pacific, Africa, and the Middle East at the Directorate-General for Research and Innovation at the European Commission. We will be joined by Ms. Claire Morel, head of unit at the MSCA unit for DG for Education, Culture, Youth, and Sports at the European Commission. We have with us already Dr. Martin Penny, who is the head of communication unit at the European Research Council Executive Agency. And last but not the least, we'll also have with us Dr. Morel, who is the policy officer for international cooperation, Asia, Pacific, Africa, and Middle East for DG for Research and Innovation at the European Commission. Of course, a big thank you to all our speakers for your availability and for joining us so early from Brussels. I'm sure that the audience is very eager to hear from all of you. And I'm Nishant Sanjale. I'm the regional coordinator for Australia and New Zealand at EURAXESS Worldwide. You might have heard me speak about this yesterday as well, but I would like to reiterate for those who are joining us for the first time. EURAXESS is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and enhances scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. We provide free information about European research, career opportunities, international collaboration, and networking possibilities. And since all of you are watching this on your laptop or your phone, I'll encourage you to please type EURAXESS Australia and New Zealand on the social media choice you have, maybe Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and follow us there. You can as well share about this event with the handle #ERDOceania. Now, moving on to today's session, just to give you the running order, we will begin with an introduction of Horizon Europe, after which we'll delve deeper into understanding Skłodowska-Curie actions, European Research Council grants, and then to Pillar 2, which will also include opportunities for the Pacific Island countries. Since we have an excellent speaker lineup, I encourage all of you to please ask your questions that you might have while our speakers are speaking, using the Q&A function in the Zoom interface and not the chat function. We'll come back to take your questions at the end of each speaker's intervention. Now, I think without further ado, I'll quickly move on to the presentations, and we'll start with the first presentation, which is on Introduction to Horizon Europe, and I'll pass it on to Nienke. The floor is yours. I'll start sharing the screen.
Yes. Many thanks, Nishant, and I think good evening to all, and good morning to those who are in Europe. I'm very happy to be part of this seminar for the first time on my site. I see 80 people connected, so that is very exciting. So my presentation this evening, will be a general introduction to Horizon Europe, the EU's research and innovation program running from 21 to 27. With a 95.5 billion euros budget. And then my colleagues following that will go into more detail. But I hope that I'm already able to explain you a little bit the ins and outs of this program, which is entirely open to international cooperation, as most of you probably already know. So next slide, please. I will start with a little introduction on the program, and then I will highlight some opportunities for researchers from Australia, from researchers from New Zealand, and from researchers from the Pacific Islands. So first of all, next slide, please. The the vision of Horizon Europe. I will not read out the entire slide, but maybe the highlights of it, that this program, Horizon Europe, very much aims to contribute to tackling climate change. We have a target of spending 35% of the program on climate. It also focuses on supporting the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. You will see that one pillar of the program focuses entirely on global challenges, and this is also the biggest part in terms of budget. Of course, it supports the EU's competitiveness and growth, and you will have probably seen from the latest changes here in Brussels. We have a new commission, new college, new political guidelines that are very strong on competitiveness and growth and the role of research and innovation within this. It also, of course, creates or supports the creation and better diffusion of excellent knowledge and technologies. Most of the evaluations focus for a big part on excellence, as well as impact for part of the program. Next slide, please. I said already in the beginning, this program is running for 7 years, so we still have 3 years ahead of us. We've already done 4. And in addition to my previous slide, this program really used scientific and technological excellence and strengthen as what we call in Europe the European Research Area, which is bringing all of the member states of the European Union together. It also focuses on the policy priorities, which are the transition to a green and digital economy, and finally it boosts Europe's innovation uptake and, as I said, competitiveness and jobs. Next slide, please. In terms of international cooperation, we very much believe that science is best and most excellent when the best minds in the world are working together. So this program is open to international cooperation to tackle global societal challenges together, but also, as I said, to access the world's best talents, expertise and resources, and enhance the supply and the demand of innovative solutions. In general, this program is open for international researchers to collaborate with those from Europe. But one specific element of the program is the association. And New Zealand is an example of this, of a country that chose to associate to Horizon Europe. This is open for countries in the neighborhood of Europe, but also since we started with Horizon Europe, 2/3 countries with a good capacity in science, technology, and innovation. And New Zealand was the first to associate to the program over one year ago. Within the program, we don't only offer bilateral collaboration, it's very multilateral. You will see this from some of the examples I will give later. Many of the collaborative projects really integrate sometimes 10, 15, 20 different institutions from different countries in Europe and in the world. So it's an extremely multilateral program, also in certain cases supporting collaboration, for example, with UN institutions. Next slide, please. So why partner with Europe while benefiting from world-class research and strong industries? First of all, despite we're not so big, or the population at least in Europe is not so large. It's 6% of the world's population. On the other hand, the EU stands behind 17% of global research and development and 25% of all high quality scientific publications. So real reasons to team up with researchers from Europe. The EU is also a patenting world leader, accounting for 19% of the world's patent applications, where we are particularly strong in advanced manufacturing and green technologies. So these are some of the reasons why we invite you to collaborate with researchers from Europe. Next slide, please. So this, I think I've said most of this already. So let's go to the next slide, where you will have an overview of what the program looks like. And I think I would like you to concentrate on the middle of this slide, the most important. The program is made up of 3 pillars, pillar 1, 2, and 3. I already spoke about pillar 2, where the focus is on tackling global challenges together. In this part, we are financing collaborative projects, meaning researchers from different countries are part of a consortium. And the research is focused, for example, on public health, on food security, energy, renewable energy, climate, etc. We have 6 clusters as part of this pillar, and this is where the bulk of the research budget lies. Then we have pillar 1, which is focused on excellent science, human capital development, and mobility programs. But my colleagues, Claire Morel, will present the Marie Curie Skłodowska actions, and my colleague Martin Penny will speak about the European Research Council. And then we also have pillar 3, which is innovative Europe. So this focuses very much on enhancing innovation, mostly in Europe. Next slide, please. So here you can indeed see that pillar 2, so the purple part of this donut, represents the biggest bulk of the budget in Horizon Europe, 53.5 billion euros over 7 years. Next slide, please. This I also already explained. This is pillar 1 of Horizon Europe, bringing together different programs, of which you will hear more detail later this evening. Next slide, please. And pillar 2, the global challenges. As I said, there are 6 clusters within pillar 2. Maybe I'll just go through them all. So the first one is health, collaborative projects in the area of health. The second one is culture, creativity, and inclusive societies. Cluster 3 is civil security for society. Cluster 4 is digital industry and space. Cluster 5 is climate, energy, and mobility. And cluster 6 is food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. And as I said before, 53.5 billion euros are going through to collaborative research in this field. Next slide, please. And then pillar 3, as I said, focus mostly on Europe, on enhancing and stimulating market-creating breakthroughs and ecosystems conducive to innovation in Europe. This includes the European Innovation Council that some of you may know, European Innovation Ecosystem, and the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. So let me now go, next slide please, go into sharing a few examples or opportunities for researchers, first of all from Australia, and then I move to New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. So in terms of Australian researchers in Horizon Europe. So you can participate, first of all, in collaborative projects. Australian entities can join collaborative research projects in Horizon Europe. Normally, EU funding is reserved for EU researchers from EU member states and associated countries, but Australian participants can secure funding through their national sources or from their own institution, and in exceptional cases receive EU funding if this is either clarified in the work program or deemed essential during the evaluation phase. The National Health and Medical Research Council and the European Union Collaborative Research Grant Scheme. This is a scheme that supports Australian entities involved in international collaborative research under Horizon Europe, particularly in health-related projects. So there are opportunities there. I'm sure Martin will also inform about the European, the opportunities of the European Research Council, where there is an implementing arrangement with the Australian Research Council, as well as the NIHMRC, but I'm not going to go into detail there. Same for Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions that my colleague Claire will talk about. So you see, despite the fact that researchers from Australia don't have automatic access to the funding, and the program is open for a collaboration and the different opportunities are there. Let me give, next slide please, some examples from the past. Over the last 30 years, so between 1994 and 2024, 792 grants were signed that included researchers from Australia, with a total EU contribution of almost 40 million euros. We also saw in this period 372 participations in Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And we have put on the slide 2 examples of successful projects under Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020. For example, the Koala project, which is the Copernicus applications and services for low-impact agriculture in Australia. It uses satellite data to help farmers in Australia manage water and nutrition for their crop more efficiently. And it created a tool using satellite images to track how much water crops are using, making farming more sustainable. And another example project is the DigiCare for You project, which is an intersectoral innovative solution involving digital tools, empowering families and integrating community care services for the prevention and management of type 2 diabetes and hypertension. So it uses, DigiCare for You uses digital tools in schools to identify and support families at risk of type 2 diabetes and hypertension. And it implemented a large-scale screening program across 4 countries, helping to detect and manage these conditions in over 10,000 families. So let's now move on to New Zealand. Next slide, please. New Zealand, as I said in the beginning, as of July 2023, New Zealand has become an associated country to Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe. And this association offers New Zealand several significant opportunities. First of all, researchers and organizations from New Zealand can now join and also lead collaborative projects within Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, which, as I said before, focuses on addressing global challenges. And they're also immediately eligible for EU funding on equal terms with European counterparts. And this is because New Zealand pays into Horizon Europe program as being an associated country. In terms of access to European research infrastructure, association grants New Zealand entities from New Zealand access to Europe's world-class research facilities and infrastructure, enhancing, as we believe, the quality and scope of the research. There's also a top-up financial support for participation. So the New Zealand Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment provides a top-up funding scheme to support overhead costs for New Zealand participants in Horizon Europe projects, in ensuring as such a comprehensive financial backing. We believe that this association marks a significant advancement in New Zealand's research and innovation landscape, really offering expanded avenues for collaboration and access to substantial resources under the program Horizon Europe. Of course, outside the association agreement, there are also still opportunities in Pillar 1 that my colleagues will speak about later today. Next slide, please. Here, I also would like to share a few results of the collaboration with researchers from New Zealand. Over the last 30 years, there have been 179 grants signed with participants from New Zealand who received a total EU contribution of a bit over 14 million euros. And we have seen 65 participations in Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And here as well, 2 examples of successful projects under Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020, the previous program. First of all, the microbiome support project, which fosters coordinated microbiome research to enhance sustainable food systems. And it achieved a mapping of the microbiome research landscape and advocating for standardized data practices to unify fragmented research efforts. So this project ran from November 2018 to October 2020. And the second example I would like to share with you is EduHealth, which examines how health and physical education in schools can be more inclusive across gender, sexuality, ethnicity, religion, and social class to improve health outcomes for all students. This project ended in December 2019 and actually fostered international collaboration between universities in Sweden, Norway, and New Zealand to develop inclusive teaching strategies that promote equitable health benefits among diverse student populations. And then to end my presentation, I would like to share some opportunities from research from for researchers, from the Pacific Islands as well. Next slide, please. So researchers from the Pacific Island nations have several pathways to engage with the European Union Horizon Europe program. First of all, as I said, the program is open to anyone. So Horizon is open also to researchers from the Pacific Islands. You can join in consortia together with partners from the European Union, New Zealand, Australia, in these collaborative research projects to address global challenges. There are also twinning activities. Horizon Europe supports twinning activities with entities from non-associated, non-EU countries, facilitating as such capacity building and knowledge exchange between Pacific institutions and European counterparts. And as I said, collaboration also via New Zealand with New Zealand's association to Horizon Europe. It serves as a bridge to increase the participation of Pacific Islands nations in Horizon Europe projects. We really see this as a great opportunity for researchers from the Pacific Island nations. And then my colleagues here again will also explain to you the opportunities under the European Research Council, as well as the Marie Skłodowska actions. And then finally, some results, some examples also for the Pacific Island nations. Over the last 30 years, there have been 16 grants signed with the participation of researchers from the Pacific Island nations, receiving a total EU contribution of over 2 million euros. And we have seen 6 participations in Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Here as well, 2 examples of projects that I would like to share. First of all, the FALA project that is actually still ongoing, which examines the impact of rapid socioeconomic changes and climate change on family farming, food practices, lifestyles, and health in the South Pacific Islands, including New Caledonia, Fiji, Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu. The consortia is led by the Université de Nouvelle-Calédonie, and it has 6 participants and 8 partners, including Fiji, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and Australia. In terms of it hasn't finished yet, but it is the project is fostering collaboration among 14 institutions from Europe, Australia, and the Pacific, and it's organizing multiple seminars and workshops to share traditional and scientific knowledge, thereby promoting sustainable family farming and healthier lifestyles in the region. And then finally, the Ocean project, which is also still running, in which researchers are investigating the genetic diversity and the demographic history of ancient seafarers in island Southeast Asia and Oceania, focusing on migrations from archaic hominins to the spread of the Malayo-Polynesian language family. In this case, the consortia is led by the Tartu Olikol, which is an Estonian research organization. It has 8 participants and 18 partners, and this includes partners from Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Australia and New Zealand. And in terms of what the project is trying to achieve or doing, it established a consortium of 25 institutions across all continents and is organizing international conferences and summer schools to advance research on Austronesian migrations. So I think I hope I have given you a little flavor of the program and what it already offers to researchers from the region. I finished my presentation, and I'm of course available to answer any questions that you may have. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Nienke. I think this perfectly laid on the platform for the presentations to follow and gave us a very clear snapshot of what opportunities exist for Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific on an overview level. There are some very good questions coming in, and the one that is, I guess, more tricky one, which I see with regards to New Zealand is, do you foresee that New Zealand may become associated to Pillar 1 for full participation in MSCA?
Thank you very much for this question. Indeed, this has also been discussed during the negotiation phase, but it was finally decided that it would be most of mutual interest to have New Zealand associate to Pillar 2. And this is actually the offer that the EU is making and has made to all of the countries that are further away, let's say, from Europe with strong STI capacity, is to associate to Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe. Of course, this doesn't mean that it could change in the future, but we are at the moment only internally reflecting on the next possible framework program, which we call FP10 right now, including association policy. So there isn't very much I can say about that at this stage. So within Horizon Europe, no, it will just remain Pillar 2.
Absolutely. I think it's already a very large chunk of Horizon Europe that is available for New Zealand at the moment. And as you mentioned earlier, Pillar 1 is inherently really open to international participation in general already. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities which we will see in our subsequent presentation that Claire is going to present on. I'll take one more question for you, and because we have the opportunity of having you here, on the Pacific Island, we have seen that the numbers are not significant, but I think the one step that we are taking is to try and enhance also the reach of this particular event to the Pacific Island countries. What do you think can we do to bring a higher number of participation from the Pacific Island countries?
Indeed, one of the first things to do, and this is what this seminar is about as well, is to raise awareness, to explain that the program exists and that the opportunities are there. The second one is indeed the networking. That's the most difficult part because especially in the collaborative projects, researchers from the Pacific Islands will always need to join consortia with researchers from Europe, and the distances may be a bit big. That's why we very much believe that New Zealand as an associated country, but also Australia that has already participated much more in the program in the past, should be seen as a bridge. There are collaborations that the Pacific Islands already have with universities, research organizations of Australia and New Zealand. Build on these links to then take a leap towards Horizon Europe. I think that is the advice that we would really want to give.
Sure. Thank you very much. There are very excellent questions coming, so it's really difficult to not take them. I'll take one more, Nienke. I'm aware that the time pressure that we are working on. I think there is a very good observation that has come from one of the participants who mentions that he understands most of the European universities have dedicated departments for managing and administering Horizon Europe funding. From a logistical perspective, it has been suggested that a European university take the lead in handling the administrative aspect of the project, while New Zealand focuses on leading the scientific research components. This division of responsibilities seems both practical and efficient. Do you have any advice to institutions from Australia, New Zealand, or the Pacific on this regard?
Yeah, coordinating a very large collaborative research project can indeed entail a lot of administration, and that is what the coordinator of the project would need to do. So you need already to have strong capacity in your institution to do that, because it will take a lot of time. You need to coordinate. In certain cases, you have seen it can involve 15, 20 different partners. Of course, New Zealand now as an associated country can coordinate can coordinate these collaborative projects when the University Research Organization wishes. But it's always our advice to do this indeed if the capacity is already there. You need to weigh a little bit the pros and cons, and whether it's more important to you to really focus on the science and lead probably on the science, or also build the capacity in your organization to more do the management, the research management, the management of the project. So it is possible for organizations from New Zealand because it's associated now, and this is one of the added values of association, helping also to build capacities in the institution. But one needs to really reflect on this. What is the science we're addressing in the project? What is important for the institution to actually do within the project? But it's certainly not the case that if you're coordinating the project, you're more valuable, or every consortia has, of course, a role within the project, whether it's more scientific or managerial.
Sure. Thank you very much, Nienke. I think we really appreciate you speaking to us on Horizon Europe, and I think it was useful to hear from you, who is at the decision-making level for these things. And it's good that there is a lot of interest, as you can see, with the questions that are coming in. So thank you very much for your availability for this session. We really, really appreciate this.
You're welcome, and have a good seminar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nienke. We swiftly move on to the Pillar 1 details now, and we are joined by Ms. Claire Morel, who is the head of unit for Skłodowska-Curie actions at DG for Education, Culture, Youth and Sports at the European Commission. Welcome to the webinar, Claire. I'll pass on the presenter privilege. If you want to share, please feel free, or else I can share it for you as well.
Good morning, Nishant, and good morning, everyone. I will try to share my slides.
Sure.
I think they are here. Does it work?
Yes, it does. It's still not on slide share mode yet, but yes.
Is it now?
Yes, but there is a big box in front. Maybe I can share instead.
Maybe you want to share, yes?
Sure.
There is a big, I don't know where this big, okay. Maybe then I stop sharing.
Sure.
Okay, so you will share, okay. Sorry for this, and good morning to all. I'm indeed going to present the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, which are part of Pillar 1. And under Horizon Europe, Pillar 1 is the part of the program which funds excellent research, frontier research, and breakthrough scientific ideas. And it allows teaming up of the best researchers in Europe and beyond. And the idea is to equip them with skills and offers them access to excellent research infrastructure. So this is the whole of Pillar 1. Next slide. You will see here on the next slide the key features. On the next one. Yes, the next one again. So the budget of MSCA for the 7-year period is 6.6 billion. Since the UK joined, the budget of MSCA increased, so it's about 1 billion per year. And the key features of the program, first of all, it's not a new program, it's a well-known program. It's a flagship program that has been there for almost 30 years, that is very well known to European researchers, but also to researchers from all over the world. So it supports researchers at all stages of their career, with a focus on the training, and in particular the training in transversal skills and the career development of researchers. So it has quite a strong and positive impact on the career of researchers, but also on the organizations that are taking part in MSCA, because it promotes a structuring impact through the development of, you will hear, doctoral programs, postdoctoral fellowships, and collaborative projects as well. And the organizations which take part in MSCA usually see an increased visibility and an increase in their global attractiveness. The program is what we call bottom-up, so it means that it's open to any scientific disciplines. We do not organize targeted calls, and the proposals are selected on the basis of their excellence, of their impact, and on the quality and the efficiency of their implementation. The program has a very strong and rich scientific impact, scientific content. In fact, this was recently demonstrated through a midterm evaluation of Horizon Europe. It showed that the parts of Horizon Europe with the strongest research content was the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action and the ERC. It supports both international cooperation, but also cross-sectoral cooperation and interdisciplinary cooperation. And the program, I said, is open to researchers from all over the world. Today, about 40% of our researchers are coming from outside the EU. We also promote very much strong links beyond academia, so with industry, with SMEs, but also with any organization that can play a role in research and innovation. So it can be hospitals, museums, or public administration. We also, at the heart of the MSCA, is the promotion of attractive working and employment conditions. So all MSCA researchers are recruited under employment contract with guaranteed social security, sickness insurance, etc. And they receive monthly allowances, so salaries, to cover their living, but also their mobility costs. So there is an additional mobility allowance and family costs as well. If the researchers have a family, they receive family allowances on top of their salaries. We are committed and we promote what we call the European Charter for Researchers, which gives researchers the same right and obligation throughout the EU. And this European Charter for Researchers addresses both researchers as well as employers and funders. And they are really key elements to make the research career more attractive. They promote open, merit-based and transparent recruitment procedures. This is also an important principle of the MSCA. They've recently been updated to integrate new elements such as ethics, research integrity, freedom of science, or open science. On the next slide, you will see the five actions which we promote. So on the next slide, yes. So if we can go to the next slide. Sorry, I don't see it moving, so I don't know if it's there. We fund okay. Maybe I missed so we fund 5 different types of actions. Yes, this one, sorry. Which cover different types of research needs, which are complementary to each other. So the biggest action, which is funded under MSCA, are the international doctoral networks, which include joint doctorates and industrialized doctorates, where PhD are supervised by academic and non-academic organizations. And once we fund these doctoral networks, the consortia which are in charge of these doctoral networks, they have the obligation to publish positions to recruit talented researchers from all over the world. I will explain later a bit where to find this information. We also fund postdoctoral fellowships. So this is for more experienced researchers. It's about 1/3 of our budget. And this is for researchers who are interested in doing their research in Europe, but also outside. They are open to researchers from any nationality, and they can either take place in Europe or outside Europe. Our third action is what we call staff exchange. It's the most international action under MSCA, and it funds short-term international and intersectoral exchanges of staff members involved in research and innovation. And it allows them to be mobile throughout the world, to be able to work on joint international R&I projects. And the interesting thing is that it's not only open to researchers, but to any person who has a role in R&I projects. So it can be technicians, it can be administrators, it can be managers. We also co-fund doctoral programs and postdoctoral fellowships with national organizations, international, with universities. And finally, we fund a science communication event called the European Researchers' Night. It's under MSc and Citizens, and it takes place at the end of September throughout Europe. As part of this event, the European Researchers' Night, we also fund an outreach action to schools, which is called Researchers at Schools. Now, if we go to the next slide, I'd like to clarify some terminology before I continue with my presentation. So I think this might have already been mentioned to you. We have 3 types of countries with which we work. We have the EU member states. Then we have the countries associated to Horizon Europe. For the time being, there are 19 such third countries associated to Europe. And this gives them the right to participate in the program on equal footing with the EU member states. These are mainly countries surrounding the EU, but we also have, as Nienke has already explained, some countries with a very rich R&I landscape associated to Horizon Europe. And then we have the rest of the world, which we call other third countries. On the next slide, you will also see some clarification on what we mean by beneficiaries. I will talk about beneficiaries. I will talk about associated partner. So the beneficiaries are those who sign the grant agreement with the EU. They receive the funding directly, and then they have to share it with the different members of the consortium. And usually, for all our actions, we have a minimum number of beneficiaries when we launch a call, as well as some geographical requirements. But we also have associated partners. This is, let's say, a lighter way of participating in our programs. So the associated partner, they do not sign the grant agreement, but they contribute to the different projects. Usually it's through hosting staff or researchers. So it means that even if they do not directly sign the grant agreement, the associated partners can play an important role in the projects by hosting researchers. And they do not directly receive funding, but they not directly by the EU, but they can receive funding from the beneficiaries. I mean, this depends on the internal grant and the internal arrangements and agreements. Now on the next slide, yes, I'd like also to clarify that in MSCA, both organizations and individuals and individual researchers can participate. So by organizations, we mean legal entities. So it can be universities, it can be research centers, but as I explained, it can also be any non-academic partner that plays a role in R&I. And these organizations can also be beneficiaries or associated partner. And then there are different rules for individual researchers who can also obviously join the program. There is no restrictions in terms of nationality. So under MSCA, researchers can be from any country around the world. It can be, as I said, their research, any type of research, any field is covered, but the researchers needs to be mobile. So it's a program really that favors the international mobility, intersectoral mobility, interdisciplinary mobility, and there are specific conditions depending on the actions. So now, if we go to yes. So now, this is a summary of where organizations from third countries, so those which are not in the EU or which are not directly associated to Horizon Europe, can participate. So as beneficiaries, so meaning as the organization receiving directly funding from the EU, this participation is possible only in the doctoral networks, and it's only for what we call low and middle income non-associated countries. So that's the only case where an organization from a third country can be a direct beneficiary of doctoral networks. However, there is also the possibility for highly industrialized countries to be a beneficiary if the consortium can prove that the expertise of a particular organization cannot be found in any other countries or in the EU. When it comes to associated partners, so I explain you the difference between beneficiary and associated partner. Third countries can be associated partners to all MSc actions, to our doctoral network, staff exchange, to the postdoctoral fellowships, and our co-funded action. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is so I've just mentioned how organizations can participate in MSCA. This is a slide on how individuals from third countries can participate in MSCA actions. And obviously, individuals and researchers can participate from third countries in all our actions. On this slide, you also see where they can look for vacancies. So for the doctoral networks, the vacancies are published on EURAXESS, and I will show you later on the link to EURAXESS. So because the doctoral networks, they have an obligation to publish all their positions. When it comes to staff exchanges, it's only the sending institution it's the organization that participates in the project that can send staff. For the postdoctoral fellowships, in some cases, information for the co-funded postdoctoral fellowship, this information can also be found on EURAXESS. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is, as I mentioned, the biggest MSc actions are the doctoral networks. And the doctoral networks aim at training creative, entrepreneurial, innovative doctoral candidates. able to face the current and the future challenges in our societies. The doctoral networks are implemented by partnerships of universities, research institutions, businesses, SMEs, etc. So these consortia can sometimes be quite big, and they can be made up of beneficiaries and associated partners. I think that on average, our doctoral networks are made up of around 8 partners. This is an average. It can be less, but in some cases it can be much longer. And once selected, they offer fellowship to doctoral candidates from all over the world. And these vacancies for these positions need to be widely published. When it comes to the composition of these doctoral networks, there should be at least 3 organizations from 3 different EU member states or member states or countries associated to Horizon Europe. And there can be as many associated partners from their countries as feasible. The fellowships for the doctoral candidates have a duration between 3 months to 3 years. And the budget that is allocated to the doctoral networks depends on the number of doctoral candidates that the consortium will recruit. So it's not a fixed amount. It depends on the number of doctoral candidates that will be recruited. I mentioned earlier that we also have industrial doctorates, where doctoral candidates step outside academia to develop skills that are needed in the business world, in the industrial world, and these industrial doctorates are supervised both by academic and non-academic organizations, and we also fund joint doctorates. So joint doctorates represent quite a highly integrated type of international cooperation, and they lead to the delivery of joint, double, or multiple doctoral degrees. Because these joint doctorates are quite demanding from an administrative point of view, they can have a longer duration. So for both the doctoral networks, both for the industrial doctorates and the joint doctorates, the consortia can have a longer duration of the fellowship. So it's not 3 years, but it can be 4 years in those cases. Now, if we go to the next slide, we'll see what the EU contribution is for the doctoral network. So as I explained, the EU contribution depends on the number of researchers who will be recruited by the doctoral networks. So you see here the research, what we call the unit cost. So this is how much the researchers receive per month. So living allowance, which is like a salary, plus a mobility allowance, plus a family allowance if the researchers has a family. There is a country coefficient, the country correction coefficient, which applies to the living allowances, to the salary. So this is to ensure that there is an equal treatment for all researchers, because the cost of living is different in different countries. So this is what you see on this slide is the basic allowances, but depending on the countries, it can be much more depending on the living, let's say, cost of a particular country. Then, and we really insist that the organizations recruit doctoral candidates under an employment contract with a full social security coverage. We also provide funding for the organizations themselves. So you see that there is, in the second column, this is the amount that the organizations receive to ensure, those are monthly allowances, by the way, that to ensure that the researchers can participate in conferences, in training, can travel, can have access to training, to language courses, seminars, lab materials, etc. And plus, on the last column, you see that the organizations also received the management and indirect costs to cover their own administrative costs for coordinating the doctoral networks. On the next slide, you will see our second biggest actions, which are the postdoctoral fellowships. And the objectives of these are fellowships for more experienced researchers. And the objective of this action is really to enhance the creative and the innovative potential of researchers who already have a PhD and who wish to acquire new skills through an advanced training, through intersectoral mobility. The MSCA, so postdoctoral fellowships, are open to excellent researchers of any nationality. And we also promote the research to be carried out within academic settings, but also non-academic settings. So who applies for the postdoctoral fellowships? It's not the researchers directly. It has to be the organization that will host the researchers. So the researchers who is interested in an MSCA postdoctoral fellowship needs to find an organization that will host him or her, and it can be an academic organization, but also a non-academic organizations. Third countries, so let's say that the hosting organizations has to be located in the EU or in a country associated to Horizon Europe, but third countries can take part as associated partners to host researchers during their secondments or in global fellowships. I also forgot to mention under doctoral networks that researchers can be seconded to other organizations, so they don't need to spend the whole time of their research in a single organization. We promote very much the idea of secondments, of being able to work outside the academic world, as I mentioned already several times. The duration of these fellowships is between 1 and 2 years, and the duration of the secondments can be up to a third of the whole duration of the fellowship. And we have two types of postdoctoral fellowships. We have the European fellowships. This is for researchers already based in Europe who can be mobile to another European countries, or it can be, or it's open also to researchers based outside Europe who wish to come to Europe to do their research. And we also have the global fellowships, which is targeted at researchers from Europe going to third countries. So they are recruited by an organization in Europe. They do their postdoctoral fellowship in an organization outside Europe, in a third country, and they have an obligatory return phase after their period abroad. And in order to promote cooperation with the non-academic world, we give the possibility to add 6 months at the end of the fellowship if the researcher wishes to continue his or her research in a non-academic organization. Now, when it comes to the financial contribution, they are on these slides. So here as well, the researcher must be recruited under an employment contract. You see that he or she receives living allowances, which are the same as a salary, plus mobility allowances, plus family allowances. And here as well, we apply a correction coefficient, a country correction coefficient, depending on the level of living in a particular country. Now, if we go to our next action, which is the staff exchanges, this is the most international action under MSCA, and usually it's the easiest one, let's say, to enter, because the success rate for this action is particularly high, and it allows as well the creation of international partnerships. So it allows teams of researchers from different countries to work on joint research and innovation projects. And what the funding for this action allows researchers to be detached, to be seconded to another organization for a duration of between 1 and 12 months. The duration of this project is 4 years, and there should be at least 3 organizations from 3 different European countries, but there can be as many associated partners, so countries from outside the EU, as feasible. So that's what I wanted to say about the staff exchange action. If we go to the next slide, you will see what the financial contribution from the EU is. And here we do not pay salaries because the researchers under staff exchanges continue to be employed by their organizations. But what we are covering is a top-up allowance, which contributes to the travel, to the accommodation of researchers when they are away from their organizations. Plus, the organization receives, so these are monthly allowances. Everything that I've shown on my slides are based on monthly allowances. And we also contribute with research, training, and networking contribution to cover for the networking activities, the research expenses. Plus, as for the other actions, there is also a monthly allowance for the management of these staff exchange networks. Now, my next slide is about co-fund, which is maybe less relevant for third countries because the let's say the beneficiaries can only be European countries, but there can be associated countries from third countries. And here we co-fund doctoral networks, and we also co-fund postdoctoral fellowship schemes. If we go to the next slide, this is a slide which is of interest in particular to researchers who are looking for a host organization. So as I said, for the doctoral networks and for the co-funded action, organizations have an obligation to publish all their positions as widely as possible. They have the obligation as well to recruit the best researchers on a merit-based recruitment procedure, and they have to publish the positions on EURAXESS, on the EURAXESS portal. This is where, if you go to the EURAXESS portal and if you choose MSCA, you will see all the current positions if you're looking for a doctoral position or a postdoctoral fellowships under co-fund. We have also established what we call the MSCA matchmaking platform, which is for researchers and organizations that are interested in finding host organizations in Europe. So I would advise you to have a look there in case you are still looking for a partner, both if you are in an organization or as a researcher if you are looking for a host organization. And under the funding and tender portal, which is the portal where all our calls for proposals are published, there is also a partner search tool. And finally, in case if you are looking also for a non-academic partner, as I said, we promote very much cooperation with the non-academic world. I would advise you to check the website of the EEN network, so Enterprise Europe Networks, which also allows for searching for non-academic partners. Now, if we go to the next slide, so this is how EURAXESS looks like, because I think that they have a bit reorganized the portal, but this is where you can find all the doctoral positions advertised under MSCA. Now, on the next slide, you will see all the important links, all the important reference documents that you should be acquainted with before you apply for MSCA. So what I would advise you in particular is to look at the guide for applicants. This is the easiest way to find an overview of the rules, the financial aspects, and what's important to take into account when you are applying for an MSCA grant. There are also frequently asked questions. This is also interesting because this is where you find information on questions that are asked most commonly. And I would also advise you to consult the national contact points from your country. They can guide you. They are regularly organizing information days, and they can help you prepare your projects. If you do not have a national contact point in your country, you can contact the national contact points in the European country where you're planning to do your research project. And we also have a global network of Marie Curie alumni, which also I think it might be a good idea to contact the alumni chapter, what we call the chapter from your country or your region, and they can be a good source of information on the MSCA program. Now, my next slide is the calendar of the next calls for next year. So you see here when the opening of the next calls will be next year, as well as the deadline. The budget for next year is not yet indicated on this slide, but it will be more or less the same as last year. So that's all. On my last slide, you will see, yes, I would advise you to follow us on our social networks, because we, whenever there are calls, they are announced well in advance on our social media. And I think my last slide has lots of, okay, I thought I had, no, it's, sorry, I forgot. I meant to add slides with all the links, but if you go to the funding and the tender and funding portal, you should have a link to all the major documents allowing you to prepare a good application for MSCA. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Claire. I think it was very comprehensive and very clear on the opportunities that are available. I'm wary of the timing, but I have a quick question that I want to put to you so that the questions are covered. I see there are many questions, but let's take this question. So it's coming from a university research office. So they wanted to ask for the staff exchange. Although Australia is not an associated country to Horizon Europe, if they host a staff at their institution, can they receive the institutional benefits for Australian institution?
I would say that this is an agreement that needs to be made within the consortium. But in principle, the highly industrialized countries do not receive funding from MSCA. But they can receive researchers, and of course the researchers are paid by the EU funding, by the project.
Sure.
Nishant, if there are lots of questions, I can provide written answers afterwards, if we cannot take them all now.
Sure. Yes, I am just worried that Martin has another obligation. So if he's okay, we can take a few more questions.
Sure, best to take them now, Nishant.
Sure. There is one question with regards to the postdoctoral fellowship. Can applicants of any nationality be eligible, which I think you have clarified, but should they be moving to EU or associated country?
Yes, they should be moving. I didn't go into the detail, but there is a mobility dimension to it. So they must be mobile. They must, when they come from third countries, they must be mobile to an EU country or to a country associated to Horizon Europe. Yes.
Sure, and there is also one question with regards to Switzerland and its relation with Horizon Europe Pillar 1.
Yes, Switzerland is not yet associated to Horizon Europe, so it's considered as a third country. But there are plans for it to be associated next year, but I think it's still being negotiated. So if the negotiations are successful, Martin, you want to say something? No, I thought.
Continue, Claire, but I just want to supplement the answer.
Yes, because it's different for DRC, exactly. But for MSCA, we follow the same rules as the rest of the program. So for the time being, Switzerland is not associated to MSCA.
And for the European Research Council, I'll say later, there are transition arrangements which apply to Switzerland. So for our calls which are currently open, so for example, the consolidated grant which is open, Switzerland can apply. You can apply with a host institution in Switzerland. Your proposal will be evaluated alongside all of the other proposals. And if the negotiations are completed by the time we sign grant agreements, then the Swiss you receive funding for working at this Swiss organization. But I give more information on that. Sorry for the complexity, Claire, but I just wanted to...
No, you're right. It's an important one.
Sure, thank you. I'll take one last question for you, Claire, which is on the Pacific Island countries and specifically on New Caledonia and Tahiti. Are universities in New Caledonia and Tahiti considered to be French universities? Would partnering with them be enough for a European collaboration?
No, I think they are considered, but I look at Martin, but I think, yes, they are considered as French, yes. So then the rules are the same as for the rest of EU countries, yes.
Perfect. Okay, I think there are a few other questions which I can also type the answers to, so I don't think we need to bother you much on these questions, Claire. Thank you very much for being available. I think we really appreciate your time and your insights into the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions.
Thank you very much, Nishant. And if needed, I can answer questions in writing afterwards. Thank you. Goodbye.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think with that, we move on to another part of Pillar 1, which is the European Research Council grants. And what better way than to have our next speaker, Dr. Martin Penny, who is the head of communications unit at the European Research Council Executive Agency. Martin, I'll start sharing my slides so that you can take over.
Thanks very much, Nishant, and good evening to everybody. Good morning to those of you who are in Europe. I'm going to talk about the European Research Council. As you'll have seen from the previous presentations, this is part of Horizon Europe and falls under Pillar 1 of the programme. And Nishant, I don't see the slides just yet. I guess they're on their way. While Nishant is getting the presentation ready, let me just remind you, this is under Pillar 1 of the framework programme. So when we've talked about associated countries in the past and talked about New Zealand being associated, remember they're associated to Pillar 2 only. Next slide, please, Nishant. Next slide. So they're associated to Pillar 2 only. So for the European Research Council, they participate in the same way as any other international partner. So ERC is part of Horizon Europe. It's Pillar 1 of Horizon Europe, as I said. Budget of 16 billion euro, about 17% of the overall budget of Horizon Europe. Next slide. But it's a little different. The ERC is designed by researchers for researchers. It's part of the programme where the European Commission has given the design of the programme to an external body, the Scientific Council, which is an independent scientific structure made up of 22 members. And they have full authority over the strategy. So it's the Scientific Council that design the way in which the programme is set up, the applications that you can make, how you apply, how you're evaluated, the types of funding which is available. And it's done to be as simple as possible. Often I know when you're looking at European funding, you see it's this 100 billion euro programme and you think, gosh, where would I start? The Scientific Council is very much on your side there and has tried to make things as simple as possible. So we have one evaluation criterion, which is the scientific excellence. It's basically, for most of our schemes, I'll show one exception, focused around an individual scientist, so one researcher. There's no need for a consortium. You choose the research topic. It's fully bottom up. There are no predetermined subjects, and all areas of research are eligible with the exception of nuclear research, which is designed for nuclear fission or fusion. I'll come back onto that if people have questions. So all areas of science and humanities, everything from, I don't know, from dance to aerospace is eligible. And it's fully international peer review. If I go to the next slide. So I talked about the Scientific Council. This is the current makeup of the Scientific Council. We'll actually have some changes at the end of the year, but you see led by Maria Leptin. She's the president working with us full time. She's previously the president of the European Molecular Biology Laboratory in Europe. And you see many other names, many other faces there, some of whom could be familiar to you. I think most people probably know Ben Feringa, who's the Nobel Prize winner in chemistry, in our physical sciences and engineering. But they're all international scientists from all over the world. Two of these people, for example, are based in the United States. And they are the ones who designed the program. So let me give you a flavor of what the program actually is. Next slide, please. So, and I see there's a strange budget figure there. Ignore me, that shouldn't be there. But they are long-term grants, for our individual grants up to 5 years. They're available to researchers of any nationality who are currently working anywhere in the world in any area of research. We give you the next slide will give you the more details on the individual schemes. If I go to the next slide, please. So first of all, before that, actually, let me tell you why would you choose for this? Why apply for an ERC grant? First of all, you get to choose to do your own research, something which is you have decided rather than being decided by a funding agency. They are substantial grants, so you gain financial autonomy for 5 years. Because the grants are fully portable, you're able to negotiate the best conditions of work with your host institution. You're able to attract, because of the reputation of the ERC, excellent team members and collaborators from anywhere in the world. You're able to move the grant to any place within Europe. And also, there's ability to get additional funding depending on the size of the type of research that you're doing. And I'll give you more information on that. So just to summarize, one researcher for any nationality, you team up with a host institution, which needs to be based in the member state or an associated country. So for example, you could be working, I don't know, at the University of Otago, and you're setting up you want to work at the Technical University of Munich. It allows you to do that, for example. Let me go on to the next slide where I give you more details of the funding. So we essentially have 5 different types of grant schemes. Let's keep things simple. I won't talk through the proof of concept because that's a specific grant scheme which is only open to our existing grantees. But the grants, if we look at starting, consolidator, and advanced grant, they all work in a very similar way. They are just targeted at different levels of experience of researchers. So for starting grants, if you are between 2 and 7 years after your PhD, and you could be a researcher from anywhere in the world, you can apply for one of these grants with a host institution in an EU member state or an associated country for a grant of up to 1.5 million over 5 years. You need to spend at least 50% of your time in Europe and at least 50% of your time on the grant. We move to consolidator grants. Here, this is for researchers who are a little bit more experienced, so 7 to 12 years after the PhD. Here, the grants are a little larger, up to 2 million euros over 5 years. And again, the same type of approach. You can be a researcher from anywhere in the world, and you apply with a host institution which needs to be in the member states or associated countries. Now, these eligibility windows can be extended depending on situations which affect all of our lives. The Scientific Council recognizes that researchers have things which happen in their research careers. For example, as a woman, you may have had a child. Automatically, the eligibility windows are extended by 18 months for every child, irrespective of whether you have the child before or after your PhD. If you're a father and have taken paternity leave, then the eligibility window is extended by the time of the paternity leave that you took off. Equally, if you've had time off for long-term illness or for a disability or for military service or carrying out specialized medical training for those of you who are MD, PhD, then you can get additional extensions to the window for the times that you've taken off. The only one of those is capped, is the one for specialized medical training, which is capped to 4 years. Move on to the next type of grants, which are advanced grants. These are for much more senior researchers. So those beyond the 12 years after their PhD, they need a track record of significant research achievements in the last 10 years. They can get up to 2.5 million euros, and it's over 5 years. So again, researchers from anywhere in the world applying for a host organization, applying with a host organization in the EU member states or an associated country. With advanced grants, as consolidated grants and starting grant, you need to spend 50% of your time in Europe. With starting grants, it's 50% of time on your grant. Consolidated grant, 40% of your time on the grant, and advanced grants, 30% of your time on the grant. And this, particularly in the case of advanced grants, allows for dual appointments, which I will talk about a little later. I'd also like to mention the synergy grants. These are a little different. It's the only one of our grants which is not targeted around an individual researcher. But these bring together 2, 3, or 4, your choice, principal investigators to work together on a project where effectively they become mutually interdependent on each other. It's much stronger than collaboration. They need to show how their research brings together maybe different disciplines or different concepts. You may be a theoretician and an experimentalist working together on a complex problem where you can get up to 10 million euros over 6 years. And one thing which is really important here, and I'd really like to bring your attention to this, is within synergy grants, one of those 2, 3, or 4 principal investigators can be from anywhere in the world. The Scientific Council recognizes that excellence can be anywhere, and that if you're working in synergy with other grantees, other principal investigators, then of course, when you're applying, you can include one principal investigator from any other country. So for example, an eligible consortium could be a French researcher and a New Zealand researcher, or a French researcher and a researcher from Vanuatu. And this additional principal investigator will receive funding on exactly the same basis as those from the member states or associated countries. So let me go to the next slide, please, Nishant. No complication in terms of evaluation. When you're writing your application, you don't need to think about policy impact or how your any other additional criteria which may be used to evaluate your proposal. It's evaluated just on one sole evaluation criterion, very simple, on the excellence, so the excellence of the research idea and your quality as a researcher. So very simple application and very simple evaluation criteria. Next slide, please. So, I should have realized, yes, it comes up just what I've said, the excellence of the research project and the excellence of the principal investigator. Next slide, please. So maybe Nishant, if you take me through the whole, just click so we go all the way through this slide, because that may be easier than doing it step by step. Okay, so it's a single submission and a 2-step evaluation. When you apply, you actually apply with an application written in 2 parts. So you need to submit a short synopsis, a 5-page synopsis of your overall proposal and the full proposal at the same time. Now, those proposals both need to be self-standing. So it's very much a short synopsis of the proposal. It's not, for example, just an introduction to the proposal. It needs to be self-standing in its own sense, the short synopsis. Because in the evaluation process, in the first stage, only this short synopsis and your CV is assessed by the panel members. So the panel members are chosen by the Scientific Council personally, and they can come from anywhere across the world with regular rotation of panel members. They review the proposals remotely, meet in Brussels for a panel meeting, and they give 3 evaluation outcomes. They can give an A, a B, or a C. Now, A means in principle that your proposal is retained and goes through to the 2nd step. They can give a maximum of 44 A's in the proposals in step 1. So some proposals may receive, a very small number may receive an A, but not taken through to step 2. Other proposals receive a B, which means it's a good proposal, but not quite at the quality that needed to take through to step 2, or a C, which means that it's a proposal which shows some merit, but is not at the quality expected for her to receive an ERC grant. If you receive a B or a C, there are also some consequences in terms of resubmission. If you receive a B evaluation, you cannot apply in the following year. If you receive a C, you cannot apply for the following 2 years. If you're one of the very few proposals that may receive an A at step 1 but is beyond the 44 cutoff, there are no restrictions on application for the following year. So if you're one of the 44 or up to 44 that get through to the second step, what happens? Well, at the end of step 1, the panel members say, who are the real world experts in this proposal? And through the agency, we will contact them all. We call them remote reviewers. And your proposal, in addition to having the summary and full proposal reviewed by the panel members, it's also reviewed by these remote reviewers. And there'll typically be at least 3 of these remote reviewers, often more, particularly when your proposal is interdisciplinary. And so when we come to the step 2 panel meetings, in addition to having the reviews of your proposal from the panel members, are also these reviews from the remote reviewers. In addition, in the panel meeting in step 2, we interview all of the applicants. So now done by video conference. In the past, it used to be in person. Post-COVID, we do these interviews by video conference. So for all starting grant, consolidated grant, and advanced grant applicants, there is an interview process. That's also true for Synergy. And if people have questions on the evaluation process for Synergy, I can take them through it. But to keep things simple, I'm just showing you the evaluation process for the individual grants here. So following the panel meeting and the interview, there are 2 outcomes. The first unfortunate one is they say that proposal is not at the level that could be considered for funding. You receive a B at that stage. There is no consequence in terms of not being able to apply the following year if you receive a B at step 2. Or you can receive an A, and an A means that your proposal should be funded. They're done in a priority order by the panel, and we fund as many of the A's as we can. Unfortunately, of course, there are some people who receive an A, but they're beyond the limit of our funding. That's always unfortunate, but that's how research evaluation goes. One of the things which is really important to us and different from many evaluation agencies is we give you full feedback. So as well as getting a summary of the panel of what they thought of your proposal, you receive copies of the individual reviews of every panel member and the remote reviewers. So if you're in the unfortunate position where you don't quite get funding, you receive, say, for example, a B at step 2 or a B at step 1, you receive all of their feedback from the evaluators. So you're in a position to review and look what elements could be strengthened when you're making an application in the future. So next slide, please. Now, this is a slide which confuses most people, but let me explain it. As I said, we accept proposals in any areas of research. We don't have predetermined priorities, but now you've got to hang on, Martin. You're showing me a list of scientific priorities. Does it mean you really have priorities? No. When we are evaluating any area of science and humanity, we have to group together our panel members in a way where they can evaluate proposals in similar areas. And so these are the evaluation panels. As you see, 9 in life sciences, 11 for physical science engineering, 8 for social sciences and humanities. And when you put forward your application, you put forward a primary panel where you think it's most relevant to this panel. If it's interdisciplinary, you may want to indicate a second panel as well, where there could be some cross-disciplinary actions. And it's within this panel that your proposal will be funded. So you're evaluated alongside proposals in broadly similar research areas. Happy to take questions on that because I know this is something which people normally have questions on. Next slide, Nienke, please. So why am I talking to you about it? Everyone who is a researcher in this webinar is eligible to apply. So if you are 2 to 7 years after your PhD, you can apply for a starting grant, 7 to 12 for a consolidated grant, beyond that for an advanced grant. If you are still a PhD student and looking for postdoc opportunities, through our grants, there are many different postdoc opportunities that are available, and you can find those from the EURAXESS platform, which Claire has already shown you. In addition, say, for example, I don't know if you're a university researcher currently at Monash in Australia and you're wanting to go and work at Trinity University in Dublin. In addition to getting for a starting grant, you can apply for up to £1.5 million. In addition, because you're moving to Europe and having to start up your research group, you can apply for up to an additional €1 million of startup funds. Or equally, if you need to buy major equipment that can't be costed within your grant, you can apply for €1 million for other lab costs as well. It's capped to a maximum of additional funding of €1 million, but it makes it much more attractive. So potentially, that's researchers I was saying currently at Monash wanting to go to Trinity University Dublin to start their career can do it can apply for up to €2.5 million for starting grants, up to €3 million for consolidated grants, and up to €3.5 million for advanced grants. Now, one thing which I think is less well known, and there aren't many examples of it, and I think those of you who are from research support offices, please bear this in mind. Our grants require you to spend 50% of your time in Europe. That means 50% can be spent elsewhere. So it's particularly suitable for dual appointees. Now, that's probably not possible for starting or consolidated grants who are setting up their research groups from the first time, but particularly for advanced grants, it may allow them to keep their appointment at the Australian National University and also have a position at the University of Antwerp. Let me give you an example. An example I used to choose. She used to be a former member of our scientific council, Barbara Romanovich. You won't mind me name checking her, but she is a professor of geophysics at Berkeley in California. Through her ERC grant, she is also a full professor at the Collège de France in Paris. Now, you may think 50% of the time, that still doesn't allow me a lot of time to build my research group in Europe and keep my affiliation in Australia, New Zealand, or the Pacific. One of the things which we take into account is when it's research related to the grant. So if you're carrying out field work as part of your grant, or you need to access major research facilities, irrespective of where they are in the world, so irrespective of that field work is taking place, if it's related to the grant, it's counted as time in Europe. So I don't know if you're working on a telescope in Chile related to your grant, that's counted as time in Europe. In addition, team members can be based outside of Europe as well. So you can apply for a grant knowing that maybe one of your team members would be based elsewhere. As I said, grantees can move within Europe within the grant, so you can start, the grants are fully mobile. So if the grant is yours as a PI working with the research institution, so you apply and you've applied for a starting grantee working at, like I say, Trinity University Dublin, but then you get a better offer from the University of Limerick, you're free to move your grant. And then finally, as I said previously, when it comes to synergy grants, and I know I haven't spoken much on those, happy to take questions. One of the PIs can be from anywhere in the world and receive funding in the same way as a member state or associated country PI. Next slide, please, Nishant. So we work a little bit in advance of the actual calendar year. And so we have already issued our calls for 2025. For example, the starting grant call closed in October this year. The consolidated grant is underway. Advanced grants will open in May with a deadline in August. Synergy grants are open in July and have closed already in November. So I've given you these indicative call dates because for 2025, which will draw on the 2026 budget, the call dates will be broadly similar. Next slide, please. So where can you find more information? So I think one of the best things to do, as well as looking on the participant portal, our website, is we have a whole series of video classes where some of my great colleagues take you through in short videos exactly everything that you need to know about the ERC evaluation, how you apply, how it's evaluated, what you need to bear in mind, how the interview works, and so on. So you can find the ERC classes. The link is here on the slide, which you'll receive from Nishant afterwards. Next slide, please. So we don't currently have any grantees from the Pacific Island countries. So I hope this researcher seminar will lead to applications from the Pacific Islands. But to give you an idea, these are the Australian and New Zealand nationals that have applied and received grants since the start of the European Research Council in 2007. So as you can see, 83 Australians have won grants, 28 New Zealanders have won grants, and that's mononationals. When people have dual nationality, we count them with, for example, with the European nationality, we count them under the European nationality. So the numbers are slightly higher than this. Next slide. And if you go in terms of the types of grantees, most of those fall under starting grant, slightly fewer under consolidated grant. As you'll see here under synergy, because here, when some of the host institution can be in Australia or New Zealand for synergy. As we said, one PI can be based there, and there are currently 3 of our synergy grants that involve Australian host institutions. So one from the University of New South Wales, one from Queensland University, and one from Monash University. Next slide, please. Now, one thing which I won't go into much detail, Nienke mentioned on it, there is also what we call in the awful EU jargon an implementing arrangement, actually 2 of those, with the NHMRC and with the ARC, where their funded researchers can apply jointly with a process through the NHRC and ARC and us to spend a research secondment position in one of the research teams of an ERC grantee. There's full information on our website and also on the NHMRC and the ARC websites. I won't go into more details on those because it's a little bit different to the rest of what I've spoken about, but I wanted you to be aware of it, and there's good opportunities for you to apply, and actually few Australians currently take up these opportunities. There are no similar arrangements currently with New Zealand. Next slide, please. So just some overall figures. We're very proud of the fact that 14 of our grantees have gone on to win Nobel Prizes, 6 have gone on to win field medals. I see these figures, we need to update them. It's a little bit more. We're up to about 14,500 researchers which have been funded. And of course, all of the other figures go up on a daily basis. So just to my final slide, where you'll receive more information is here. You can follow us on social media. And one link which is not there, which I'd encourage you to sign up to, is in addition to these social media channels that we have there, and Nishan can give you more information, we have a WhatsApp channel, because I don't know about you, it's sometimes difficult to find what you're looking for on websites and social media because there's too much information. So we have a simple WhatsApp channel which just sends you information on funding opportunities and outcomes of calls. So very unpolluted information where you'll get maybe 1 or 2 posts per month. So sign up to our WhatsApp channel if you're just looking for those funding opportunities. Nishan, that's the end of my presentation. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. I think it was one of the most comprehensive presentations on ERC grant a lot of our attendees would have heard on. So thank you very much for that very clear insights. There are so many questions. I think there is a lot of questions on synergy, and in general, I've been speaking about ERC in Australia and New Zealand as well. And there is a lot of interest with synergy, of course, because it allows one PI to be based outside. So I'll take a few questions very quickly. I'm wary of the timing constraint for sure. For synergy grant, is the funding equally shared by the 2 PIs?
I mean, if you're going with 2, it's up to 2.5 million per PI, and you cost it according to how you need it in terms of postdoc months, PhD months, travel, consumables, experimental costs. But it's up to 2.5 million per PI. In addition, each of the PIs can apply for this 1 million of extra funding. So if you need to have major equipment, access to large research facilities, and so on, which you cannot cost within your grant, you can justify why you need this extra million. That's checked by the panel that this justification is robust. The other funding, it's based on your own terms and conditions that are put in place by your finance office.
Sure, thank you. On the synergy, there is a very concrete question, but I'll try to ask because I'm sure you will be able to answer it. For a synergy grant, which has multiple PIs with one coordinating PI, if a synergy grant application gets B at step 1, and therefore the 1-year resubmission requirement, can the synergy group change the corresponding PI and resubmit an improved grant for the next deadline?
It's great. Researchers always want to find a way around the system, don't they? No, the quarantine period applies to all of the PIs that have put together the application in Synergy. So it's not the corresponding PI that receives the penalty, as they called it. It's the applicants collectively together.
Sure. And how true is it with regards to the scientific responsibility? What does a corresponding PI differentiate from a general PI?
Well, the corresponding PI is a bit like the coordinator in the other parts of the framework program. We always need to have one point of contact. If you're looking at the rest of the framework program, Morel will be talking about this. Morel will be talking about this very, very shortly. You need to have one coordinator who's basically the admin point of contact. Again, similar with our corresponding PI, they're our point of contact where we channel information and request information from the PIs through that person. How you organize yourselves internally in terms of who's in charge of leading on particular areas of science, or how you make your decisions internally is purely up to you. We just need one point of contact. And so it's the corresponding PI, which in the case of Synergy needs to be a corresponding PI from within Europe. We wouldn't ask that the corresponding PI would be from outside of Europe for a very practical reason, in that the payment is sent by the corresponding PI. And so if we would send it, for example, to a corresponding PI in Australia, the euros would be converted into Australian dollars. They would then need to pay their other PIs in Europe and have to convert those dollars back into euros. It just doesn't make sense for everybody. So the corresponding PI needs to be in Europe.
Sure. I'll take two last questions for you, Martin. For the starting consolidator and advanced grants, can team members in Australia receive funding?
Yes. Simple answer, yes.
Excellent. I think that
they need the team members. They need to be, if they are, you need to show why a team member in your application, why it's important that you're including them as a team member, what expertise they bring, particularly for starting and consolidator grants. Remember, the focus should be around the PI themselves. And so you need to show that the PI is carrying out the research independently and it's not maybe a shadow supervisor in Australia. But if it's clear that it's something which is going to really add value to the research of that PI by having a team member in Australia or New Zealand, then that's part of the application. They can then formally be a beneficiary of the grant or an associated partner, depending on whether they're funded or non-funded. But yes, they can receive funding.
Sure, thank you. And the last question that I had was, do we have support to assess the suitability of the proposal of a Synergy grant?
Sorry, say that again. Do we have
the support to assess the suitability of the proposal?
Well, here, when it comes to Synergy, if you're applying from the normal question, I would say would be to talk to the national contact points. They will give you advice on the suitability of the grants. With New Zealand, you have many national contact points. Australia, there's a central national contact point service. But bear in mind, when you're working with Synergy, you're bringing in PIs from other EU countries. They have national contact points as well. So always worth talking with them. And I think also look at previous examples of Synergy grants. We fund the abstracts of all of our grants on our website and on the Cordis website. So you can get examples of what have been previous Synergy grants to get a feeling of the kind of level of ambition of a particular Synergy grant.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. It's always a pleasure to hear to you could be on your global approach or on ERC. You are just so eloquent in both of them. Thank you very much for your time, and we really appreciate your insights in the region. I'm sure that we will see higher number of quality applications in the days to come, not just from Australia and New Zealand, but also maybe from the Pacific Island countries. So thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. I leave you in safe hands with Morel.
Thank you very much. So last but not the least, we will now quickly look at Pillar 2 opportunities and also opportunities for the Pacific Island countries. And that will be presented to us by Dr. Morel, who is the Policy Officer for International Cooperation, Asia, Pacific, Africa, and the Middle East at DG for Research and Innovation at the European Commission. Over to you, Morel. I'll try to share my screen so that you can start your
Thank you very
presentation.
much. Thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. And I see we are indeed numerous to this session. I'm really happy to be here with you. I will be presenting you a deep dive into Pillar 2. My colleagues have already touched upon different parts of Horizon Europe, and Nienke at the beginning of this session gave a good overview of how Horizon Europe is structured. We can, I see the presentation is almost ready. Indeed, as we saw before, there are different Nishant. We still don't see it fully open. I guess it will arrive in a moment. Horizon Europe has indeed different pillars, as we have seen, and now we saw Marie Curie and ERC from Pillar 1. But there is also the biggest part of the program, with the biggest part of the funding as well, that goes under Pillar 2, that is aiming to address the global challenges. So let's see if we have the PowerPoint.
Still not visible, the presentation?
No, we see the folder, but we don't. Okay, now it is visible. So thank you very much, Nishant. Indeed, we will be focusing on understanding the Pillar 2 with also opportunities. We can go to the next slide for the Pacific Island countries in particular, but we will also touch upon opportunities for participants from Australia focused on Pillar 2, New Zealand focused on Pillar 2. I will start first of all with an overview of how Pillar 2 is structured and what are the main contents. And then there is a concluding part with references to tools that can be useful for researchers. So going to the next slide, we can see, you can click again, there is a circle highlighting indeed the Pillar 2 part. So Horizon Europe, as we were saying, has three main parts, and Pillar 2 is the part that dedicates to tackling the global challenges through research and innovation. We can go to the next slide. These two slides you have already seen, and here indeed we can see that the Pillar 2 is the part in purple, so it has the biggest part of the budget, 53.5 million, and it is billion, sorry, and it is indeed dedicated to different topics of research. We can go to the next slide, so we will go a bit faster on this overview part. So some highlights of how the Pillar 2 is built and developed, like the main elements that we can highlight. So indeed, it dedicates 53 billion to address global challenges and also strengthening the European industrial competitiveness. It is divided into 6 key clusters. We will see it later in a dedicated slide. And it indeed aims to tackling global challenges, and it's aligned with the global goals, for example, the UN SDGs, the 2030 agenda, and so on. It encourages, this is very important for researchers, cross-disciplinary and cross-sectoral and cross-border collaboration, as we have mentioned before, also with examples of projects that include consortia, including researchers from different countries and different universities. This is very important. And of course, it supports EU policy making that is based on scientific evidence. This is important as well. And it aims for transformative and systemic societal impact. And this is done in particular in Pillar 2 through the EU missions and the EU partnerships. We will see this in the presentation later. And it aims indeed also at having a lot of innovation, like supporting innovation as much as possible by supporting SMEs and also startups. And it is built on strategic planning in order to maximize the impact of these results. We can go to the next slide, so the next one again. So here we will focus a bit on how is this Pillar 2 composed, let's say. So we have, as we said, 6 clusters, what we call clusters. The biggest part of the budget is indeed dedicated to different thematics of research. It is important to say that this part of the pillar, before Martin was presenting ERC, and he mentioned that in ERC researchers can do their own research and they can choose their own project. In pillar 2, the topics are top down, so it is the work program that indicates for each topic what is the main thematic and what is the objective that we want to achieve. The thematics are indeed gathered into these clusters. We see here health, culture, creativity and inclusive societies, civil security for society, digital industry and space, climate, energy and mobility, and then we have food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agricultural and environment. We can go to the next slide again. So here we can see them divided into, again, we see the thematics and we see the budget dedicated to these thematics. And also we have a reference to the JRC non-nuclear actions, which is direct actions that aim to generate high quality scientific evidence for good public policies and policy making. So Pillar 2 contains all of this, and together with this, the different clusters are also implemented through the missions and the partnerships, as we mentioned before. So in more concrete terms, how is this translated into the program? So when the work program is published, it is divided into the work program, for example, 2025 will be divided into different thematics, divided by clusters, as we are seeing, so by these different thematics. And within there, we will also find topics that are dedicated to the missions, that are dedicated to the partnerships, and so on. So it is, as we were saying before, top-down, indicating what are the objectives of the projects to be reached. We can go to the next slide, indeed. So we said that the clusters are implemented through partnerships and missions. So focusing first on the partnerships, it is a novelty of Horizon Europe, and the objective is indeed to get transformative and systemic societal change. The idea is to bring together public and private investments and to avoid overlapping of investments over certain thematics, so to be more effective and efficient. There are different types of partnerships. So we have the co-program, partnerships, which are usually between the European Commission and, in most cases, the private sectors. We have the co-funded partnerships that involve the EU countries and associated countries through their national funders or public authorities. And we have the institutionalized partnerships, which involve the Union, the member states of the EU, and industry. We can go to the next slides. Here we see a mapping of all the partnerships according to the different thematics and also according to their status. So we have the institutionalized partnerships in orange, and in green, the co-programmed one in dark blue, and the co-funded one in light blue. What is important to say is that indeed, as I mentioned before, the objective is to be as efficient as possible. So they are all dedicated to specific and important topics. And the objective is indeed to gather the funding and to avoid overlapping. So they are sort of very distinguished thematics for each of the partnerships. We can go to the next slide. So we also mentioned the missions. The missions are also a novelty of the program, and they are part of the Pillar 2 topics and thematics. And the objective is, again, to have a societal transformation through research and innovation. We can go to the next slides because it will be more visible, okay, what we're talking about. So there are 5 missions with a mission, indeed, each of them, and a deadline. So by 2030, they all have an objective to reach. And it is indeed, each of them, it's a portfolio of actions across different disciplines, and they have specific topics dedicated to them to achieve these objectives. And they are focused, indeed, we said that Pillar 2 is focused on the global challenges, so they are focused to solve some of the main global challenges that we're having. So the cancer mission is aiming to improve the lives of more than 3 million people. The climate mission aims at making 150 regions and communities climate resilient. The ocean mission aims to restore the ocean and waters, and the cities mission aims to achieve 100 climate neutral and smart cities. And the mission soil aims to create 100 living labs and lighthouses that will lead the transition towards healthy soils. It is possible for researchers to participate in specific topics and projects dedicated to the missions specifically. We can go to the next part of the presentation. So we focus on the possibilities for researchers from Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands. I have separated them because there are different rules applying for each of these cases. We can go to the next slide. So, thank you. Nienke also presented before a larger overview, let's say, that was including ERC and also Marie Curie actions. You have also seen them presented in detail today. Here I will focus specifically on the Pillar 2 part. So researchers from Australia can join Pillar 2 as part of the international dimension of Horizon Europe. Australia is not an associated country, which means that researchers and entities from Australia can participate by joining a consortia as partners. Also, in addition to this, it's important to mention that Australian entities do not receive funding from Horizon Europe, as this is dedicated to entities from member states and associated countries, but it is possible for researchers and entities to get national funding from national resources, and exceptionally, when indicated in the topics in the work program, it is possible to have funding under Horizon Europe if the participation of the Australian entities is considered as essential. There is, and it was mentioned by Nienke at the beginning of today's workshop, the possibility for Australian researchers and entities to get funding from the National Health and Medical Research Council, but this, of course, funds research on the medical thematics. We can go to the next 2 slides. So, while focusing on the opportunities for the New Zealand researchers. Yes, thank you very much. So New Zealand has associated to Pillar 2, which gives a larger access to the topics and to Horizon Europe, Pillar 2 in particular, indeed. So entities and researchers from New Zealand have full participation, access and rights to Pillar 2 on the same terms as EU member states. They can participate to all the 6 clusters and all the JRC actions, including indeed missions and partnerships, as it was mentioned before. And they can not only join a consortia as partners, but they can form a consortia, and they can have different roles within the consortia. They can be partners, coordinators, knowledge providers, and so on. And indeed, this is the main difference in, or the most visible difference in being associated or not. We can go to the next slide. So the slides have also links for additional information and more detailed information. And one more. So Pacific Islands, with regard to Pillar 2, Pacific Islands are not associated to Horizon Europe, but Horizon Europe has a commitment in supporting research and innovation at the global level, and in particular towards countries with less resources, let's say. So the Pacific Islands are included in what we technically call low and medium income countries, and the consequence of this is that entities and researchers are automatically eligible for funding under Horizon Europe, even if the Pacific Island countries are not associated to the program. This makes indeed a big difference, because it is possible for the entities to join the different topics and participate in consortia and get funding under Horizon Europe. It is also possible, and it was mentioned both by Signe yesterday, by Nienke today, and tomorrow there will be a specific presentation on the association. It is possible for the entities and researchers from the islands to collaborate with researchers from New Zealand, because it is a stepping stone towards the building of consortia. We can move to the next part and the final part of the presentation, so we can quickly go through the slides. I wanted to include this to allow the researchers to see where they can indeed get more information, because sometimes it is very difficult. There are many websites and so on, so it's good to have a direct reference. So we can go directly to the next one. Thank you. So the EU funding and tenders portal, it was mentioned before also by other presenters, is where we gather all the information for applicants. It is possible to find all the work programs that are published. It is possible to find which calls and topics are still open for application or are opening for application. And there are also information on how to apply, how to build a project, and so on. We can go to the next one. Thank you. Indeed, you can find information on, you can search for call for proposals, register your organization, you can search for partners, there are data and statistics that are available, and it is possible to have support and guidance. Here, the national contact points are mentioned. If I remember correctly, there are national contact points for New Zealand, and I think there is still not yet a national contact point for Australia, but it is possible to still find guidance on the website. And then it is possible to have indeed guidance on proposal and project management. We can go to the next one. Okay, so EURAXESS, you know well, here we are, and I would like to take the chance to say many thanks to Nishant for the amazing work he's doing. It is really good to have this service that can indeed bridge the researchers in the Pacific region with the researchers in Europe, and share all the possible knowledge on Horizon Europe and how to apply and what are the opportunities available. And then the next one is the reference to the info days. So when a work program is published, colleagues usually prepare info days that are online webinars similar to this one, specifically focused. There are multiple dates and multiple sessions, specifically focused on the different clusters or the missions, topics, and so on, where the topics are presented, the calls, let's say, are presented, and it is possible for researchers to ask for questions in detail, specifically for the thematic area that is presented. So I hope this is useful, and I am happy to take any question, and thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Morel, for your presentation. It was really clear and very concrete as well as always. I think it was an excellent day, very technical, very in-depth to what we have been discussing. As you might have seen, if you joined yesterday, it was a high-level overview. We went into much detail today on Horizon Europe itself. Tomorrow, as Morel had already mentioned, we'll be looking at Horizon Europe and Association. We have panelists from New Zealand, UK, Canada, speaking about their experience with association. And then, of course, we will also hear from New Zealand speakers on how they have gone about the 1.5 years, almost 1.5 years of their association with Horizon Europe. So, of course, there is a lot to look out for. But before that, I'd like to express my sincerest gratitude to all our esteemed speakers and to, of course, Morel, who is still with us at the moment, for your insightful interventions. I'm sure that the audience found it very interesting. Thank you very much, Morel, on that. And see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. Australia time, which is 8 p.m. New Zealand time, for day 3 of the European Research Day, which is on Horizon Europe and Association. If you have not registered, you can still register for tomorrow. And we look forward to seeing a lot of you again tomorrow with us. With that, I think I'll sign off. And thank you again for all your attention and time.
Many thanks. Bye. Thank you.